I was listening to a man just a couple days ago, and he made the statement, children are an addition to marriage, not the replacement.
Right.
I love my kids.
Yeah.
I want my kids to succeed in life. I want them to be productive members of society.
Yeah.
I want them to be good, godly Christians. But my wife comes first.
Right. Right. It's so hush-hush that we can't even talk about, basic concepts like that, and how... And if people want to get married and get pregnant, whatever, it's their own thing.
Yes.
We're going to talk about kids. We've got that in our notes here. 3 things that destroy your marriage. Kids. No, kids do not destroy your marriage.
All 3 of them.
Yeah, all 3 of them. Yeah.
We both have 3 kids.
Yes, we do. They're awesome. Anyway.
They are.
But, there are basic concepts and basic ideas that we... as parents, we don't teach our kids. We don't discuss any part of it in a church setting. And I'm not talking about taking a group of boys and girls into a class setting and just talking about it.
Exactly.
But, you have to separate the men and discuss it, separate the women and discuss it, it's difficult. It is a hard conversation.
It is.
I'm struggling right now. I could talk about communication all day. We're going to talk about prioritizing, your spouse. But when it comes to talking about sex, it's like, man, it's really hard because you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to lead people astray. You don't want, obviously you talk to a bunch of young kids about sex, there's going to be jokes, there's going to be things like that. But, people need to learn it is okay to enjoy sex as a Christian. Lack of sex,
in the confines of marriage.
In the confines of marriage, correct. Lack of sex, lack of desire for sex, lack of improvement with sex, lack of communication with sex can and will destroy your marriage and cause you to be miserable. Now, that's really harsh. It's hard because I know that there's a lot of Christian couples out there that don't have sex. And I'm not pointing anybody out. I'm not saying I know anyone. I'm just saying I've known of people. I've known of different couples that they just don't do it. And it's not that they necessarily think it's wrong, but they don't do anything to improve it. It becomes dull, it becomes boring, and then they just kind of give up on it. And I think that you can, as a Christian, do things with your spouse, experiment, do things to improve, do things to get better at it. And, I think that that's going to help your marriage. I think that it's actually going to improve things in your marriage. One thing with that is that I want to talk about is, it's okay to have sex even though sometimes you don't feel like it. That's a really big statement, and some of you are probably going to hate me and crucify me for that, but it is okay to do that even though sometimes you don't feel like it. Obviously, there are exceptions to that. I make a statement like this, and no, I'm not saying that every time you don't feel like it, every time you're sick, or every time that you have a ton of stress, or every time you have a whatever it is, that you have to agree and consent to that. I'm not saying that. But if you really want to improve your sex life with your spouse, if you really want to enjoy your marriage, you have to put forth effort. If you want to improve it, every time, everyone gets bogged down with work. Everyone gets bogged down with kids, or bogged down with bills, or brought down with something that happened that day, or there's different types of stress that come our way, but there's also a choice that we have to learn to make. Am I always going to let these things bring me down to where I cannot please my spouse? Am I always going to let these things get in the way from her or him from enjoying them physically? It's okay to push through the stress and everyday demands and enjoy your spouse on a physical level. Sex is a great stress relief, Brother Sean. It can lower. I look at the stats, man. It can lower your blood pressure. It can decrease depression and anxiety. It can cause you to have better sleep, and most importantly, increase intimacy, closeness, and connection to your spouse. So
that creates a closeness
Yeah.
that I dare say is unmatched,
right,
with your spouse. That's something that's not experienced, hopefully, with anyone other than your spouse.
yeah,
And that's when you do something with only that one person,
yeah,
that creates such a bond and a closeness that is unmatched.
right,
That builds trust, that builds confidence.
yeah,
That I don't know how to say this right. But she's proud of me.
yeah,
She loves me for who I am.
yeah,
She accepts me for who I am,
right,
even in all my flaws.
yeah,
It's unmatched.
yeah. It is unmatched, and you talk about outside of the confines of marriage, outside of the unity that God created in the beginning in Genesis. I just read it a moment ago in Genesis chapter 2. There's reasons for that. When you're married and you experience that intimacy with your wife or your husband, it creates, like you said, we talk about the communication aspect of it, obviously creates a closeness to them. It creates something that is unmatched because it's something that is more than just a physical. Yeah, obviously there's physical is huge,
Right.
huge part of it, obviously. But you're connecting with that person on levels that you're not going to be connecting with anyone else on spiritual levels, on mental levels.
Yep.
And all the sex is good. It's fun. But you are connecting to them in a way. You talked a moment ago about how, no one knows you like Jay. No one knows me like Morgan. No one knows Morgan like I do. Sex is a big part of that.
Yep.
And it's a connection. And obviously, Morgan and I, we did not have sex before marriage. We were able to enjoy that with one another without any interference beforehand. And to me, I see that as a great thing because it connects us not just physically, it connects us in every aspect of our life.
And you followed it according to God's plan.
Yeah, and not to say, and I'm not on here judging. I want everyone to listening to know that. I'm not on here saying that if you did make whatever mistake or you did do something like that before marriage, that all of a sudden you're just a terrible person, that God can't forgive you. God can forgive you. God can help you through all those things. Yes. But when God forgives you, you're made a new creature in Christ. Sex with your spouse is pure. Sex with your spouse is something that helps you grow together spiritually, mentally, physically. Next time, I talked about it's okay to have sex even though you're stressed. It's okay. It's okay to find out if there's some sort of physical or mental imbalance that causes you not to enjoy sex. A lot of this is crazy, and I don't feel like you have to dive into that entirely because I know there's a lot of variables and there's much more to it. There's a lot of time that we don't have to get into it, but it's okay to see a doctor or a physician to talk about your sexual drive or lack thereof. There is nothing wrong with having a sexual drive. God gave that to you.
Yep.
That's going to blow your mind, but God created you that way. How you use that is up to you. It's, you should strive, and this is where it's probably going to hurt a lot of people because it hurts me thinking about it sometimes. But you should strive to be physically fit and able to have sex. I know I'm nowhere near where I want to be or need to be physically, so I don't want anyone to take this as a hypocritical thought or statement. I know where I am. I know where I need to be personally. But your physical health is important when it comes to having sex, enjoying sex, lasting longer. It's okay to be a Christian and eat better. It's okay to be a Christian, and this is going to be hard to believe, It's okay and biblical to be a Christian to exercise and take care of your body physically. Men, it's okay to want to have big, strong muscles for your wife. Wives, it's okay to want to tone up your behind for your husband. Our culture tries to take those things and twist them, just like I said earlier, and make them unholy and make them something that God never intended. But that doesn't mean that it's wrong. That does not mean that God doesn't want that. It's a silly thought to believe that God does not want you to be physically in shape. I don't understand why people, I say people, Christians, churches, pastors, preachers, all think that to be physically in shape must mean that, you're trying to, I don't even know, like have people lust after you, stuff like
Right.
that. That's such a silly thought. There is nothing wrong with wanting to take care of your body physically to please your wife or husband. There's nothing wrong with wanting to eat better to not only help your own physical body, to help you have longevity in life, but also to help you please your spouse. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a silly thought. And just a hint to one of our very, very near future episodes, we're going to discuss gluttony and unhealthy eating. Things that Christians don't talk about. But here's just a short preview. We get so upset and slap the Bible in people's faces when they have tattoos or piercings, when they drink alcohol or when they smoke, because our body is a temple of the Holy Ghost. The leading cause of death in men and women is heart disease. High blood pressure caused by unhealthy eating habits causes heart disease just as much as smoking or being exposed to smoking and secondhand smoke does. We want to be pleasing to God. We want to be pleasing to our spouse. We need to take steps to better our physical health. Well, I don't agree with this person getting tattoos. I don't know if God agrees with you stuffing your face and being a glutton. I know that's harsh. I know that's an entirely different episode that we can get into, but it's a big part of enjoying sex with your spouse. What I found, it's probably been 2 years. I've been trying to eat better, trying to exercise more. I can see little things of improvement. It's not it's, what is it? What is the quote? It's not a marathon, or it is a marathon. I don't know. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So there are things that I'm trying to do to better myself, but something that I've noticed is I sleep better, obviously, get up earlier, have strength, and am able to push through the day. And we talked about pushing through and having sex even when you don't feel like it. A big part of why we don't feel like it is because we don't take care of our bodies physically. A big part of why we don't feel like it is because we don't eat healthy. A big part of why we don't feel like it is because we don't exercise. You want to be pleasing to God. You want to be pleasing to your spouse physically. Take steps to better your health. Eat healthier, exercise more, get active, get more sleep. I think that is God ordained just as much as marriage and sex is. So, we talk about the lack of communication in marriage, how that's a marriage murderer. We talk about the sex or the lack thereof of sex in marriage and how that, can be a murder of marriage. What's a third thing, Brother Sean?
Our third thing is, it's going to be kind of controversial as well, but it's children.
Yeah.
I was listening to a man just a couple days ago, and he made the statement, children are an addition to marriage, not the replacement.
Right.
I love my kids.
Yeah.
I want my kids to succeed in life. I want them to be productive members of society.
Yeah.
I want them to be good, godly Christians. But my wife comes first.
Right.
All too often we see spouses that get busy, and I understand life's busy. But we get so busy trying to raise our children so they're the good people. So my child's going to be the lawyer and the doctor and the mechanic and, he's going to be the banker and all these things. And they're fine. But we get so busy trying to do that we forget about who's sitting right beside us.
Yeah.
On my wedding day, I stood before a congregation,
Right.
held my wife's hand, and made some vows to her.
Yeah.
I didn't make vows to her and our one-day kids, if we got to have any. I didn't make vows to her and to her parents.
Right.
I didn't make vow to her and to my parents.
Yeah.
I made the vows directly and only to her. Oh, but mom has to take Sissy to tumble class, and dad has to take Junior to soccer practice, and it's date night with the kids. I see that a lot, and that's great.
Yeah.
You know, dad will take his daughter out on a date night.
Right.
When's the last time dad took mom out on a date night,
Yeah.
though?
Yeah.
I mean, our anniversary was 8 months ago, and I took her out to eat then. And you've had 4 dates with your daughter
Yeah.
since then?
Yeah.
Where's mom?
Yeah.
Where's dad? Where's husband and wife?
Right.
That guy that made the comment about the children edition American Idol replacement also said, if my child wants a new video game and my wife wants a date night, my child better enjoy the old games he has.
Yeah.
And again, we're not saying we're perfect.
Yeah.
We're not saying that we've got it all figured out. We're working on these things. But our children are watching us.
Right.
I talked about the 5 love languages earlier and the quality time that Jay likes. We don't lock our kids in the room, all the time. We don't always just say, hey, just walk away and lock ourselves in the room or whatever.
Yeah.
And I said it, we will sit on the couch. Kids are running around playing with their toys, Brecken will run at me, Dad, look what this new toy that Ducky gave me. And,
Yeah.
Whitley will come in there and, Dad, look what we did at school today. And I'll get to watch that. And, Cicely has to be involved, so she'll run back there and find whatever stuffed animal she can, They don't notice this as, it's not processing in their mind, but they're watching us.
Mm.
They see my arm around Jay.
Yeah.
They see when Jay gives me new AirPods because mine broke.
Right.
These things are all being stored up in their memory bank. Date nights with your kids, great. Spending time, whatever, going to tumble class and going to FFA or whatever. Those things are great. And they're going to learn things from those. Jay lets the kids help her cook sometime. Wonderful.
Yeah.
I hope that my kids grow up. I can't cook.
Right.
I'm not knocking my parents in it. I just can't cook. I've tried it.
Yeah.
I've burned a grill twice, caught it on fire twice. Jay spends time cooking with the kids. They love it. They get to spend time with mommy. But they also see when I come in there and I just sit down on the counter, hey, baby, how's your day going? What happened today?
Yeah.
Those actions speak louder than words. We've heard that all of our lives.
Right.
They are watching and they are learning.
Yeah.
If my son is watching Dad come home, and I'm going to take a shot at me again here, go sit on the couch and watch football for an hour
Yeah.
instead of going over and talking to mom, he picks up on that.
Yeah.
Your spouse comes first
Right.
over your children. They see us pouring into each other, and they see us ignoring each other.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And they can turn into those same beings.
Yeah.
We all know this. History repeats itself. If you're raised in a household where mom and dad are always arguing and fighting, when that person grows up, that person may say, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
I can't stand the way my parents acted.
Yeah.
But that will come out. And it's something that they're going to fight all their life because mom and dad did not take the time for each other.
Yeah.
If you see a husband and wife who grew up holding hands everywhere they went, as kids, that's gross, don't do that. I'm going to kiss your mom, those things were all funny. But when they grow up, when they find that spouse
Yeah.
and they're walking into Walmart, there's a really good chance when he's 25 and married, he's going to reach over there and he's going to hold her hand.
Yeah. Right.
Or dad saw mom struggling
Yeah.
to carry the groceries in, so he ran outside
Right. Right.
to help mom. Your kids are watching those do that.
Yeah. Your kids are watching you do a lot of things, and I understand that we want to spend time with our children, from the bottom of my heart. It's a difficult place to be. It is, because obviously I want to spend every waking moment with my kids, and I know that's against what we're talking about. I'm not saying that I do, but I do want to, because I want to see them grow. I don't want them to turn 18 and then all of a
Right.
sudden life flashes before my eyes. They're 18, grown up out of the house, and I didn't spend quality time with them. Your kids need to know that they are a priority above everything else except your spouse. Your kids, it's okay to spend time with them. It's okay to do
Yes.
those things with them. There's nothing wrong with that. But they're not prioritized over your spouse. They're not first place and your spouse is second place. Your spouse is first place and your kids are second place. And your spouse sees that. Your husband or wife sees when you put kids in front of them. They
Yes.
understand that. Your kids, they also need to see the biblical structure in the home. You talk about Ephesians 5:22. The Bible says, "Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands." And then the Bible, we like to stop there. The Bible then goes on to say, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." Your kids need to know that you're living what Ephesians 5 is saying here. They need, I believe, wives, you need to show respect to your husband. Husbands, you need to show love to your wives. There's actually I think it's I can't pronounce his last name, Dr. Emerson Eigerich or Ezerich, whatever. Anyway, there's a book called Love and Respect by Dr. Emerson. Just search Dr. Emerson. I don't even try to spell the last name. But it's a book that discusses that in great detail, talking about how, if you want your wife to respect you, you need to love her. And wives, if you want your husband to love you, you need to respect him. Yep. And that goes hand in hand. And, your kids need to know that. They need to know that there's a biblical structure when it comes to your marriage. And I'm just throwing this in there, but you need to stop overruling your spouse when it comes to your kids. That's a big no-no as well. For example, if your husband tells the kids no, you don't need to go back behind his back and tell the kids yes. If your wife gets them into trouble, don't make them think that what they did is okay. That's where the communication's key. I know Morgan is home all day with the kids. I know she sets rules and boundaries. I know what those boundaries are. What kind of husband would I be to go in and mess up those boundaries because I didn't like it or change anything around because I didn't think of it at first? Now, understand what I'm saying. Christ made the husband the head of the home, but it's okay to discuss with your wife a situation before going over her head and jumping the gun. I've done this before. I get home, and the kids, I don't know what it is with kids, but they love to ask the other parents something that they have already been told no about. Yeah. And I do this all the time. I make a mistake. I shoot myself in the foot because I'll get home and, Jude will be like, "Dad, something random is like, can I have an apple, Or I'm not even going to talk about food, but like, "Dad, can I play this game?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, son, no problem." And then you hear Morgan in the background say, "No, I told
you after dinner.
He's got 15 spankings today. I grounded him from that game." And the communication is key there. It's like, if I'm gone for 8 hours and I come home, I don't know what's happened. Yeah. I haven't had a play-by-play throughout everything of what happened with the kids or what Morgan went through. Who knows what they did wrong? Who knows if they did get grounded? But I am the man. I set the rules. Sure, yes, but I also need to have compassion for the rules that my wife puts in place. I also need to have compassion, and that's what I'll do. They'll say, "Daddy, can I play the game?" Or "Daddy, can I, watch whatever?" "Daddy, can I play with whatever toy?" And my first response is, "Let me ask Mama," because I don't know what she's done to tell you no. And I don't know why the first thing that happens when I come in is not "Daddy, I love you. Daddy, I want to hug you." It's "Daddy, can I play this?" So that, there has to be communication, and that we have to learn to stop overruling our spouse when it comes to our kids. And there's a lot to this. We often say that our kids should not see us argue or hear us argue, but I have a difficult time with that logic. I just do. We don't need to whine or call each other names or show selfishness or throw fits of rage. But to say that our kids should never see us argue or never see us fight gives our kids an unrealistic idea of what marriage is. I think that a lot of times we want to show our kids what we feel like the perfect marriage is, when in reality, we just need to be real with them. We just need to show them, look, a couple things. Number one, mom or dad is a priority over you.
Yep.
Number two, I'm not going to overrule mommy's rules. When mom says no for whatever reason, I may have a discussion with her and maybe she'll change her mind, but I'm not going to sit there and say yes. And the third thing is, it's okay to have a heated discussion in front of your kids. I'm not saying, look, I know that what I just said, you're going to be like, well, you really shouldn't. There's things you shouldn't talk about in front of your kids, sure. But what kind of conflict and resolution ideas are you putting into your head if all they think about is, well, mommy and daddy agree on everything. Well, mommy and daddy never fight. Well, mommy and daddy, they just see eye to eye. What's going to happen is when they get older, they're going to think that the person that they're married has to see eye to eye with them, and they're going to be in for a rude awakening. They're going to be in for a terribly rude awakening. But our kids shouldn't see my marriage, your marriage, how I want them to see it, which is love and peace and a bed of roses. They need to see it for how it really is. It is love. It is peace. It is a bed of roses. But it's also difficulty. It's also trial. It's also times of conflict. It's also times of challenges. They need to know that when conflicts arise, that they can be resolved. Brother Sean.
How do you expect, this is something that probably one of the first thoughts that came to mind when we started talking about marriage or close to it, was how do you expect to pick back up when the kids are gone and you're empty nesters? When all you've done, when all you've done may be a strong term for it, but when what you have done, I'll put it this way, for the last 30 years is ignored your spouse and their needs.
Yeah.
Again, the children side of it, we get focused, because they are the next generation.
Yeah.
Again, they need to be taught morals in this day and age.
Yeah.
Very bad.
Yeah.
They need to be taught the Christian way of life.
Right.
But they're still watching you.
Yeah.
And if you think that, oh man, I got time, this kid's, they're 2, 4, and 6. So here in 20 years, they should all be moved out of the house, and then I'm going to take care of my wife.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Right. It's going to destroy it.
You're going to destroy it way before that.
Oh, yeah.
It may not go to divorce.
Right.
I pray it doesn't. But I have seen these things happen.
Yeah.
Where couples get to fighting and bickering, and now they're 50, 60, 70 years old, and you hear comments
Yeah. All the time, yeah.
like, I'm only doing this for the kids. Why?
Right.
And I know I sound harsh when I'm saying some of these things, and it is kind of harsh, but it's reality.
Yeah.
Why are you dealing with your spouse because of your youngest child?
Yeah.
You should be dealing with your spouse because you love her,
Right.
because you've communicated for the last 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
because you've grown older. Those couples they are not growing old together.
Right.
You talked about, and we never even discussed this, but you talked about the younger ones growing together versus the older ones separating. They're not growing old together.
Right.
They're growing old.
They're growing apart.
And then when they're 50 years old, they have a gap, a bridge they have to gap.
Yeah.
And now that they're set in their ways,
Right.
because he's ignored me for so long, and because she started this argument 25 years ago, y'all think I'm crazy? I probably do. But I have talked to people who are mad at each other well up in years, not that I'm anything, but well up in years, and they're mad with their significant other, and they can't tell you why.
Yeah. Right.
I can tell you why.
Yeah.
I may not be able to point to the exact moment back in 1973 or whatever,
Yeah.
but y'all didn't communicate.
Right.
I don't know if y'all had sex or not.
Yeah.
Probably not, or it wasn't very fulfilling,
Yeah.
and you were prioritizing others in front of.
Right.
And that you can prove those things by looking at the way that they live.
Yeah.
They don't talk to their spouse
Right.
unless it's an argument. That's the only way they know how to communicate.
Right.
He sleeps in the guest bedroom all the time now. I won't say that. I have some ancestors that were that way.
Yeah.
And their spouse came after their children.
Yeah.
And again, you can prove it.
Right.
Look at how their kids and their grandkids come over. They will about jump up out of their seat and run to the door to open it for them.
Yeah.
But then your husband's coming in. You don't even check to see if the door's still unlocked and it's pouring rain outside.
Yeah.
He knows how to get in the house.
All right. Right. Yeah, it'd be fine. Which, by the way, I think it started raining.
It sounds like it may have. This is the last thing I have to say here. If you have anything, Jonathan, you can go there. But think of your wedding day.
Yeah.
Mine was April 12th. And I've thought about it a lot this last couple weeks for sure in trying to prepare for this. If you have a video of it, some people have recorded, go back and watch it. I challenge you to. Look at that one that you made those promises to. Has he aged a lot? Yeah. Has she got a lot more gray hair? Yeah. But look at that one you made the promises to. Those vows that until death do us part. We try to add clauses in there.
Right.
We don't actively say it, but in our mind we do. Well, I don't feel like talking to her this week because she made me mad. No.
Right.
In sickness and in health.
Yeah.
In the good times and the bad.
Right.
When we're on the mountaintop.
Yeah.
When we're down in the valley. When everything's going right. When he just lost his job because the company closed down. Whatever it is. Look at those vows again. And then go act upon it.
Yes. Amen.
Jonathan?
We want to thank you all for listening in. Obviously, like we said, there's different variables. There's a lot that we could have covered in this episode alone, even with just those 3 points. And there's even additional points or reasonings behind, why your marriage is suffering. But I challenge you to look at those things. If you lack communication, do what you can to get better at it. If you don't enjoy sex, if you lack sex, if you don't have a desire for it, if you don't do it, see if there's things that you can do to help improve that. Improve yourself physically, talk to a doctor, whatever testosterone levels are low, or whatever it may be, whatever hormonal imbalances you may have. And then the third thing that we talked about is prioritize your marriage, prioritize your wife over everything else. Not over God, obviously, but over everything, every other person that you encounter, kids, friends, whatever it may be. Prioritize your wife. Prioritize your husband, because they are what's most important in this life. Pray that something that we said helped you, challenged you. If you have any questions, again, you can search us on social media platforms by searching at podcast, the number 4him, at podcast 4him. Email us at theeverydaychristians@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment there. And we want to, again, thank you all for listening in and pray that you are blessed.
God bless.